Hi, Dr. Regan Robertson, CCO of Productive Dentist Academy here, and I have a question for you. Are you finding it hard to get your team aligned to your vision, but you know you deserve growth just like everybody else? That's why we've created the PDA Productivity Workshop. For nearly 20 years, PDA workshops have helped dentists just like you align their teams, get control of scheduling, and create productive practices that they love walking into every day. Just imagine how you will feel when you know your schedule is productive, your systems are humming, and your team is aligned to your vision. It's simple, but it's not necessarily easy. We can help. Visit productivedentist.com/workshop. That's productivedentist.com/workshop to secure your seats now. So for us to say we want to be profitable is fantastic. Why? Why is that important? You have to give me a reason as an employee to show up every day and want to contribute to this mission. Welcome to the Everyday Practices Podcast. I'm Regan Robertson, and my co-host, Dr. Chad Johnson, and I are on a mission to share the stories of everyday dentists who generate extraordinary results using practical, proven methods you can take right into your own dental practice. If you're ready to elevate patient care and produce results that are anything but ordinary, buckle up and listen in.
Hey, everybody, this is Chad Johnson, and welcome to Everyday Practices Dental Podcast with my co-host, Regan Robertson. Regan, how are you doing?
I am very happy to be here today and excited to get down in the weeds with you and discuss dueling operating systems.
Operating systems? What's that mean, Regan?
This is our promise. So a few episodes back, if you haven't listened before, Wish Fulfillment is here. Chad and I both have been through Business Made Simple and Traction, which is by Gino Wickman. Business Made Simple is by Donald Miller. And so we discussed a few weeks ago, going into the kind of giving them a throwdown and giving the differences, because it's just like wearing shoes, Chad. So like shoes, Chad,
yes.
We have our preferences. There's application, context is important. How are you going to use them? And I think the same goes for business operating systems as well, how you run your business. And so these are two particular methodologies that I know we've incorporated elements into PDA in our own philosophies as well. You have also implemented elements from both into branded dentistry. So that's our wish fulfillment. We're going to talk
particularly
about
right now. We're going through mission statement, just so you know. But you know
we
are. We're pushing through. I told the team, because we've had 2 meetings on it, and I'm just like lunch meetings, and I'm just like, I have to admit, this at first I pushed away, but then I was like, you know what? I'm going to push into it. So I'm pushing into it for what it's worth.
I want to push into it with you. That sounds really fun. So why don't we go over and explain the differences of each one?
Let me explain also another idea that I just had. If you had a floor of broken glass that you had to walk across, and that is business, sharp obstacles, issues, you can sit on the sideline and talk about the theory of which shoe should you, or you could walk across without shoes and get hurt. But any shoe is probably going to do to help you get it. So in other words, if you're willing, you can get across the business landscape by applying any management system. And in fact, de facto, you are implementing a business system regardless of having a formal business system. The one that you're doing might just be called "You're the King and you make the choices," and how's that going? And it might be going great, right? It is an operating system, however you're doing it.
This is a metaphor, I think, for you in many ways, for how I know you and I know myself. So you've heard us on our podcast before say that we're kind of like twins in certain areas. I have seen you be proud to probably walk across that broken glass floor because you are tough enough to handle it. And I think being a business owner sort of is, you have to have a little bit of that resilience in you. So whether you have a system or not, right, you're going to have to walk across that floor. And I appreciate that. That was my takeaway from that, is you could do it very painfully, or you could equip yourself with the proper equipment,
right,
and make your journey a lot easier.
And if BMS was a pair of sneakers and EOS was a pair of work boots, both of them are going to keep your feet safe. Like it's going to help you get across. So in other words, if someone's like, Regan and I have always been talking back and forth, like I like this system better. And I actually feel like Traction was the first mainstream effort that I know about to apply this kind of theory to, small businesses. And then Mike Michalowicz, who we had on a while back, talked about his it's a management system and how he took, a big, hairy, audacious goal and made it into a bang for a noble goal. And so that's kind of started our discussion on EOS versus BMS. And even Donald Miller had come up with, like taking these ideas and softening them and getting them more marketable. So like I felt like each new iteration was a softening of how to implement, and not softening in a bad way, like softening the sharp, jaggedy corners.
I think what Donald Miller did with his was he used our innate ability to tell stories.
Storytelling. Yep.
So the BMS hook, if you will, from my perspective, is he's taken the power of storytelling to make the process of operation system management more memorable. So I think that is a good way to describe softening from my perspective, is once you know the 7-part framework of a story that every single human engages every single day, and you see it, it's almost like seeing into the matrix. Once you see that, you cannot unsee it. And he has taken that 7-part story framework and applied it to every element of the business. Some, I think, to extremely successful heights. Others, I'm like, I can tell, I think this needs work as someone who runs a business. Sure. Yes. So it's not perfect. He knows it's not perfect.
Sure.
But
he keeps massaging it.
He brings in partners that have helped him, and then they massage and collaborate together.
Yes.
And I don't know Gino Wickman's enough. I read Traction before I read StoryBrand. So
yes.
And Traction, when I first read it years ago, it did definitely seem like the end all be all answer to me, in so much that for a small business owner who might not have a pre-existing management system or an MBA. So I don't have an MBA. So for having neither of those, I felt like it
brought
was
clarity.
It was like the Holy Grail. I was like, oh my gosh, I know how to do my meetings now. I can set up my mission. I can do this and that. So for me, though, with my marketing background, my visual storytelling, BMS made much more sense for me. And so I was able to apply it. So let's go down
let's do it.
One of each. So go ahead and tell me about Traction, and then I'll tell everyone about BMS.
So I'll start out by saying, I'm a work in progress 2 years into EOS, the entrepreneurial operating system. And for me to summarize within 5 minutes is going to be close to ridiculous, but hopefully it gives you enough flavor. But I mean, this is hours and hours and hours of development in quarterly meetings, in initial meetings to discuss. So here I go. EOS is a complete set of simple concepts and practical tools that has helped thousands of entrepreneurs around the world get what they want from their businesses. So implementing EOS will help you and your leadership team, implying that you set up a leadership team, get better at 3 things: vision, traction, and health of having a cohesive, functional, healthy leadership team. When you have a healthy leadership team, you're able to get traction, and you as the business owner have to cast the vision. Vision is getting everyone in the organization 100% on the same page to where you're going and how you plan to get there. Then you get an implementer, and Traction talks about, that. So it's nice having someone like Victoria in Productive Dentist Academy. It's nice having someone like Regan to be able to, help implement the stuff. Traction is the idea that you can have awesome tires, but if you have a ton of torque, you can throw down and you can still spin the tires, right? Or you can go really slow and you've got traction, but you're going 1 mile per hour. Are you actually making progress? So you want to be able to get your business spinning and moving in a direction, and not just spinning a burnout with your tires. And to do so in business practical terms means once every 13 weeks, once a quarter, you are setting up 2, 4, maybe 5 goals, each of you in the leadership team and as a business that that you can implement to get something done by the end of the quarter. It's a big, so first you go, here's my vision. I want to make $1 million in our dental office. And then everyone focuses on what is holding us up from making that $1 million. Okay. And if those are the things that are holding us up, if those are the issues, how can you set up a quarterly goal so that way by the end of it, we make those goals, we make the big vision goal because we have implemented granular things and we've given ourselves a time frame. We've set our rock up. That's what gains us traction. That by the time we get done with the 13 weeks, if we have this done, we're more likely to have been successful with the bigger vision of where are we trying to shoot for by the end of the year. And if you try and accomplish 20 things, you probably won't accomplish 20 things. You might get 1 or 2 things done. If you only set up one thing, that's not enough speed. You're only going 1 mile per hour in that car. You're only getting one thing done. So can you set up 2 or 4, maybe upwards of 5 things each that by the time the quarter gets done, when you're holding yourself accountable on a weekly, consistent basis, that you can then make sure that you go back and go, yes, we got those goals done. Regan, go.
You saw my face in
Yes.
this. I've never thought about how, because I love both traction and I love Business Made Simple. And I realized here is, I'm already going to tell you what I think the difference is now. So I'll explain what Business Made Simple is in comparison. When I heard you just talk about that traction, how fitting for the name too. You spoke a lot about how to take action.
Yes.
So it is all about divvying up different tasks and different objectives, given I think rocks is what they use for like the quarterly, the big quarterly terms, right? So you identify your priorities, like in a business plan, you milestone it out, and then it is all about getting action around those pieces.
That's right.
So that is a very data-driven model. And I know traction does cover some of the more emotional elements. So it does cover the vision and the mission and things.
Sure.
And what I just jotted down here is, wow, what Business Made Simple to me as an organization has been, it helps you clarify who you are, what you believe in, why it matters, and most importantly, clarifying that so that you can communicate that with your team and your target audience, be it patients, be it B2B, whatever it is. So Business Made Simple takes the business, any business. Now, both of these are catered to small business owners, not necessarily dental practices per se or healthcare, although both can be applied. And Donald's fun visual is he believes businesses should operate like an airplane. So the leadership is the cockpit for that. And so what Donald Miller has done is he's created 6 disciplines, if you will, that will grow any small businesses. And so he's put them into these sections that visually make up an airplane. So you've got the leadership, which is the cockpit, and the framework that goes with that is Business on a Mission, which is an online course. So you can buy the book, you can log into businessmadesimple.com, and you can go through interactive learning modules. I don't know if Traction has something like that, but it's been enormously helpful. I love online learning. You're right. Your right engine is your marketing. So that's clarifying your message. The sales is the left engine of the plane. And there is the customer is the hero course that helps you clarify your message around that. The products are the wings. And he has a great new product optimization course to help you understand what products are profitable within your business, how to do that audit, because some business owners don't know how to really audit that either. So how to look at what you're doing. The overhead is the body, and that's productivity and management made simple course. So that's your employees, that's your overhead. And then cash flow is the fuel tanks of the plane. So he has a course name called Cash Flow Made Simple as well. And so I personally I've gone through all of the courses, obviously, since I am a Business Made Simple certified coach. I've been in this process now for several years. And just like going to a PDA productivity workshop, or maybe even a COIS lesson, I think you get something each time you go back and you learn something new. Right. But the The area that I have spent the most amount of time in is the leadership. So the courses associated with leadership, which is the cockpit. So working on, yes, the mission statement, clarifying that. And you said you were going through the mission statement right now. And I don't know if it was the BMS
It
module,
is.
like, okay.
It is.
Okay.
So tell, for the listener's sake, tell the formula for that.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So when you think of mission statements, there's the external facing one, which Chad has. Everyone go to verandadentistry.com, go to their Facebook page. He has a beautiful social media presence. And Chad believes that they are there to slay disease. So the purpose of the practice is that. And there's actually a beautiful external facing mission statement that has a lot of flowery language around why getting to optimal health is important, that relates personally to Chad. Internally, though, with the team, when you're trying to, this is where traction and BMS come together, I think, absolutely beautifully. Think of the mission as a military mission. So while you might want to win the war against disease, there's going to be individual missions that you have to sign up for and you have to achieve in order to get there. And so your mission statement internally is an annual. It can have a timeline to it. I like to make it annual. So, and really what it says is, at Veranda Dentistry, we will X. So your X is your goal. It could be, we will add an associate. It could be, we will expand to 14 operatories, or it could be, we will hit 2.8 million in top line production. Whatever your goal is, you assign in the X. And then you put the by Y. So the by Y is your deadline. That gives you your hard date with which you must achieve that particular goal. And then the because. So it's X by Y because of Z. And the Z part is the actual heart. This is where I think BMS accelerates far beyond the other methods that I've tried in the past, because he gets down into the philosophical reason of why it actually matters. So I just heard somewhere, I think it was like in 1970, I can't remember. I should pull this, because whenever I say I can't remember, it's going to take the credibility away from it. But I heard something about, they were having a discussion at the Federal Reserve level, and they declared that the most important thing a business can do is make profit. Like that would be the controlling idea for businesses moving forward in the United States. And that's probably great for a business owner who can partake in it. And it's great if they pay the employees well and it all works out really, really well. But on the surface, that is a data-driven point that has nothing to do with emotion. So for us to say we want to be profitable is fantastic. Why? Why is that important? You have to give me a reason as an employee to show up every day and want to contribute to this mission. Typically, and this is what BMS really teaches us, people want to play a role that makes a difference in a way that's bigger than themselves. So they want to inherently make the world a better place, and they want to play a part in that. So why does that matter? And healthcare makes it a little bit easier, since we're in the business of helping people transform and become better versions of themselves. But why does it matter? So that's your Z part in the mission statement. So we look at mission statements differently. And then in order to, like I said, keep it memorable and work through the story brand framework, we have to talk about the behaviors that will get us to that goal. So the BMS metric has it set up, its key characteristics. You might call it core values. So I like to think about it as really behaviors. What do we want people to show up, and how do we want them to behave in order to make that mission possible?
Yes.
So we can talk and not to do 5. So don't do 5, don't do 10, don't do too many, keep it down to 3.
Yeah.
And if you can keep it to 3, it's easy to remind ourselves, because the brain neurologically remembers 3 so much better. It can remember 5, but 3 is like the brain's sweet spot. So PDAs, we have 3 key characteristics. It is being knowledgeable, and being relationship driven, and being responsive. And we rank them in order so that we can make our decisions better. So for example, should an emergency arise, the very first thing I have to go on as a team member within PDA is, do I have all the knowledge in this situation? Do I know everything that I can? It stops me from reacting, and it forces me to go into open curiosity. An emergency has happened. Do I have all the knowledge necessary to make a decision? And then the second piece of it is relationship driven. So we can tend to get really compliance driven, and that can shut down relationships. And so the second piece is, am I being in relationship with this situation? Am I in a good headspace for it? And then once I have those 2 things together, I can be responsive and I can make a good decision. So that's what key characteristics are. And that course goes through and teaches you that. And then it funnels down from there. It gives you critical daily actions that you can do every single day. So Chad, I know you're a happy man if you get to have some physical time somewhere. So if you're biking, or if you're swimming, or if you're doing something where you're connecting with your body, when I interact with you, if you have done that, you seem calmer, you seem more focused, you seem happier.
Right.
So that, to me, if I was drawing up like Chad's dream list, I would probably put some physical activity as a daily action for you.
Right. And perhaps barbecue. I'm just saying, which is also physical. I mean,
barbecue makes you very happy.
Well, yeah. So the EOS model has a wheel, if you can imagine. And I suppose if you went to Google Images, you could, look up the EOS model. And they call it 6 key components of any business that must be managed and strengthened to be a great business. So you were talking about the different parts of the plane. And what's interesting is you could have a huge gas tank, and if your wings don't support it, then, the plane isn't going to fly, right? So it has to scale,
It does.
Right. I mean, I doubt any small business would have a problem of a cash flow of $6 trillion. That might not be as big of a problem but within reason, it's tough to have.
Sounds like our government.
Right. 6 trillion. Wait till we hit 60 trillion. Wah, wah. And then
money
we
seems
laughed.
to just grow on trees for that.
Right. And then we laughed.
I digress.
Right. So on the wheel, here are the main things of the wheel. Vision, number 1. Data. And what I loved about Productive Dentist Academy was that they helped you focus on the data. Like you go back to 2013 and there was the monthly board of, what dentist was producing what per hour. You enter in the data of what your collections were, and then, like how many new patients, and then you send in the Excel file and, stuff like that. So you were looking at the data because you've got to know, those data points to be able to make decisions. Next, process, is the process followed by all the employees, and is it documented, like the process? So, and not down to, deterministic mechanisms of, you must take 6 steps to the door and then turn the door clockwise 45 degrees and then open the door, but like, do you have something, that's somewhat granular to explain the process? Next is traction, having rocks and having a meeting pulse. Meeting pulse had to do with leadership team. We meet once a week. It's the same time every week. We actually meet at 1 o'clock on Mondays, once a week. And you make those meetings unless you're on vacation or on your deathbed or, some good excuse not to, but just not any old excuse. We also have a meeting with our team regarding EOS statistics and whatnot once a quarter. I, as the president of the company and the visionary, cast the vision by giving a state of the company address. And we do that over lunch. We celebrate once a quarter. Did we hit our, goals or not? And what progress did we make as a business? What obstacles did we face and or possibly overcome? That kind of stuff. So we have a quarterly meeting with the team at large, with our leadership team, a weekly meeting, and that's to hold us accountable. There's a way that the meeting goes, so again, this is really tough to explain real quickly, to you as listeners, but I'm just giving an overview. Next, we have vision, data, process, traction, and issues. Issues are, you list your issues and then you go through and you IDS them. You identify them, discuss them, and solve them. You do it 3 at a time, like you said, with 3.
Yes.
So, you just go out of this list of 20 issues. What are the top 3 that are keeping us from hitting those goals? Let's talk about them. Let's, solve it by having an action plan of to-do list. So that way next week you're doing that or whatever. You're smiling. You've got a thought?
Because you almost need both. I'm just thinking about how I've applied these over the years. If you don't have enough structure, this is a good way. I think that tractions strength is in the structure. So,
yes.
so BMS does have management and productivity made simple. I have applied those here. So we have our daily huddles, and we switched our executive sessions over into the EOS style. So we do the IDS, we do we do the rocks, we even have our headlines. And so we use both. And I think that what I have noticed is that unless you're super clear about who you are and where you're going and why you're going there, then it's only going to be applied as clear as you are. So you could, if you try to put traction in and you're not really truly clear about it and you're kind of wishy-washy, like the worst place to be as a business owner is complacent. And I have seen dentists who are complacent, and that's not necessarily a terrible thing. They're making a good income. They seem okay. They're just kind of coasting.
Right.
But if you're just coasting and then you try to put traction in and you're not clear about where you're going, I think your degree of success depends on that. Vice versa, I think if you're super clear about where you are going and you try to put in some of the other systems like that BMS has, for example, the management and productivity, I haven't seen the same level of success that I've heard from an EOS. However, from the leadership standpoint, like the leadership cockpit, the marketing cockpit, the sales cockpit, oh my gosh, clarification. It takes sales out of the communication entirely. Incredibly, I mean, it links up with PDA's methodology for how you communicate with patients to an absolute T. You're in relationship. So it's all about strengthening the relationship components of it. So I actually think you can successfully use both together, which I was ready to do a throwdown and pin them against each other. But now that I'm hearing you say that, I'm seeing how I use this in our own. And then to throw a third level in, I don't know how Traction handles cash flow, but Donald Miller, I can tell, has definitely paired up. Okay. He has clearly paired up with Mike Michalowicz, who does Profit First. And then I can't remember her name, Barbara Stackhouse, I think. She did Profit First for dentists. So she has a book out there that does that. And you can tell so in the cash flow, it just basically tells you, here you get your 5 accounts set up. You get your operating account, personal checking account, tax account, your business profit account, your investment holding account. And I just did a webinar with Ryan Isaac of Dentist Advisors. And I bet if you go through our social media, you guys can find that. It's also incredible because it gives the Dentist Advisors formula, which I think pulls. It pulls a bit from that as well. And it's not the Dave Ramsey model. So it's not, all debt is bad model. But it talks about how he specifically sees successful dentists set up their structure, I guess, or their framework as well. So and then there's a negotiation made simple in the leadership section as well, which he teamed up. Oh, you have it. Oh, no. I need to get you access. I believe it was an FBI negotiator that runs the course. So it's not Donald that runs the course, but it helps you. It's a different way of having crucial conversations. So again, I like the leading of the emotion and then managing it with a really strong data set and structure behind it. So really though, ultimately for BMS, all of it boils down to the book you gave me years ago that started my journey, which was the Building a Brand Story. And it is the 7-step framework. So it is what do you want? What does your patient want? What does your team want? You can apply this. It's like Donald realized you can apply this in every single element of your business. And that's really this core hub is what did they want? What problems are they experiencing? How does the problem make them feel? Why is it unfair? Who can guide you in the process? So you're not alone. No business owner is alone. So who's your trusted advisor that can help put together a 3-step plan for you? And this is where I think traction comes in. This is where I think we start to see that link in. So where does the plan come in? And then how do you put the structure to that plan? That's where I see the meeting structure coming in, the identifying of the milestones, being really clear about who owns what. That's why I love BMS because
and almost to a point of over clarification. Sometimes like if it's just like, if you as a leader feel like you've given the message before about what you're about and everything like that, it's probably still not enough because occasionally you need to make sure that the team has heard it and heard it and heard it. So I'll tell you, the last thing is people, right seats, and that's a big EOS thing, traction thing. Do you have the right people? And so it almost like it's the bus, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Are they in the right seat on the bus?
What type of tools does traction have for that? For the
okay,
right
so
people, right
then
bus?
It goes back to full, those 6 things. It goes back to the first thing on the of the circle with vision is once you've established your core values, then you hire and fire on those core values and you incentivize on those core values. So ours are a core. We have 5 core values.
Yes.
Attentive, compassionate, optimistic, reliable, efficient. And those spell a core value. Funny enough. We didn't plan it that way.
Acronyms.
I know it happened.
I love your values.
I know it's amazing like that somehow in a real hokey way, it ended up that way.
Core is not a word.
No, but a core value.
Yeah. Oh, I get. Oh,
I'm sorry if it's a little. I'm sorry if it's a corny joke.
Well, so BMS and traction are like linked at the hip for this,
correct.
Because that's exactly how you identify the controlling idea of the actual role. So what it takes to accomplish the role, and you pair it with your key characteristics and your daily actions. So you can manage to the daily actions. That's like your touch base, but the behavioral elements, which are your core values, the core. So listen, when you hear a core, you said, what was the first one? Attentive. Attentive is a fantastic key characteristics. At Veranda Dentistry, we are attentive.
Yes.
And then what BMS has helped me do is put definition to it. And I don't know that traction helps you define it. Maybe it does, but it's really important to say what that means to you, because attentive to you might not be the same way I define attentive. And
so that's where my PDA coach, Joanne, brought in that you guys should codify a code of ethics based off of your core values. So we now have a subcategory of listed, so what does attentive mean? Here are the 4 things that we've all agreed upon that being attentive means. So it brings more clarity to that. Again, it's if possible, over clarification. So
clarify. That is the job of a leader.
So if you as a listener have a question regarding any of this stuff, BMS, EOS, all these ABC letters and stuff like that, feel free to comment on our Facebook page or to give us a shout out, personally, Regan at productivedentist.com, REGAN, and Chad at productivedentist.com. We'd love to hear from you. I think that should give us a natural pause for the podcast. And just for reference, we are still going through books. So we'll be hitting up another book, and it depends on the order. So I won't say, which book, but Regan knows it's the inner game of tennis. But who knows what the next one will be. Regan, thanks for joining me and talking this stuff through. It's this has kind of been cool to actually not have to go head to head, but just to see actually the similarities.
I agree. Absolutely. Great episode. Thank you everyone for listening. And thank you, Chad, for being the best co-host.
Oh, you back at you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Everyday Practices Podcast. Chad and I are here every week thanks to our community of listeners just like you, and we'd love your help. It would mean the world if you can help spread the word by sharing this episode with a fellow dentist and leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify. Do you have an extraordinary story you'd like to share or feedback on how we can make this podcast even more awesome? Drop us an email at podcast@productivedentist.com. And don't forget to check out our other podcasts from Productive Dentist Academy at productivedentist.com/podcasts. See you next week.